Just constant gnome stories.
All right, look, I know that some of you listening to this, and even Eugene, I know that some of you do not know me well enough to understand how serious I'm about to be with you. But if you never believe anything else I ever say to you, please believe that this story is true 100%. And if this story did not happen exactly like I say that it happened, you have to believe at least that I believe 100% in my heart with all of my being that this happened. All right, so one night when I'm a kid, at the house we lived at when I was a kid, there was a hallway that went by my bedroom door, and the bedroom door would always get left open because we weren't allowed to have closed doors in my house. And I had a light. I was young enough to still have a night light. To be honest, I was probably a little too old to still have a night light.
Oh man, but like same page because
Yeah.
I had the nightlight probably, or I asked to leave the hallway light on. Anyways, go on.
I had a little light
Until I was 24.
Yeah, 20. Yeah, this story took place when I was 17. So no, I was probably 8 or 9 maybe. But I had a little night light, and it shone just enough light. And this will make a lot more sense when you see the cartoon that I'm going to draw to really give you the floor layout of the place. But there is a little space between my door and the other side of the door. I believe that's called a door frame. There's a little in the hallway, and the light from my nightlight was kind of right by the door in my room, so that it would cast this little bit of light out into this dark hallway. And one night, as I would often do because I was an anxious little kid and couldn't go to sleep until my mom had come to bed, there was oftentimes she would put me to bed, and then I would stay in bed wide awake until she came up and went to bed. Then I was like, all right, now it's safe to go to sleep. But I was sitting there like I would do, staring at that little patch of light in the hallway, waiting for her to turn the lights on and come upstairs to go to bed. And all of a sudden, I see this tiny little, like just the tip of something very low to the ground start to poke out from one of the corners of the door. And it's dark, but this is not a dream. I was wide awake for this. This is not like some kind of, I just had a nightmare.
You're so defensive. You don't realize that we may get flooded with people who are like, that happened to me.
Well, no. All right. Let me. Okay. So I see just this tiniest little bit of a tip of something start to creep out from the ledge of the door, and I'm immediately taken aback by this. I'm like, what is this about? What's going on? Then it moves back away, and I was like, okay, so I know something moved, and so now I am dead set, glued to just watching this door frame go, what is about to happen? What is going on? Then, and in the hat, head, beard, and all of a little gnome peeks its head out from this corner of the door to look at me. And like before I can scream my head off, all of a sudden it just inhumanly fast darts across the doorway.
What?
Yes. This is exactly as
See, okay,
crazy.
hold on. Because I didn't believe the story was going to actually lead to, and then I saw a gnome.
Yes, but that's not. Look, we are not even to the craziest part of this. As if that was not crazy enough. All right, and so in that hallway, it just darts across like it's a blur. It's too fast for something should be able to move, especially something so small. And this did not look like a fun gnome. It looked like about the size of the ones in this episode, but it looked like, gnomes are supposed to be really old. Like, it looked like something that would have that kind of age to it. Like, it had the red hat, and it had, like, the big white beard and mustache, but it looked scary. And it darts across. And so now I am terrified. I'm like, all right, if I scream for someone to come up here and check on me,
The gnome might kill them.
The gnome might run in and get me, or it might kill them when it comes up. Well, then I was like, oh my God, like I'm terrified. And I'm trying to figure out what to do. I'm definitely not getting out of this bed.
No. Because while you're in the bed, you're safe.
Yeah, somehow.
As a kid, that is the logic that you go with.
My bed is just tall enough that a gnome couldn't get to it.
Also, he couldn't lift those covers.
Yeah.
They're too heavy.
They're too heavy for a gnome. So, but then I started worried, like you said, I started worrying about like, okay, I've got to sit here and wait until until my mom comes to bed. But then I was like, oh my God, what if this gnome is waiting there for her? And eventually she came to bed. I saw the lights come on in the hallway and she walked up, no incident. And I didn't say anything about it to her. I was just like, all right, I guess everything is okay. I got no sleep that night.
Right.
I was still terrified the whole night. Here is the craziest part.
When you woke up, you had all these shoes. You had all these new shoes sitting in your room.
All of my shoes
it was
had
amazing.
been repaired. No,
those were gnomes. Oh, those were elves.
Elves.
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm sorry to any gnomes listening that we got confused. All right. I mean, or elves. I guess I don't know which one is.
Whoever is going to get offended, we're sorry. Or hey, it could just be gnome and or elf enthusiasts that can be offended.
Sorry, Paracelsus, wherever you are, making gold out of rocks and hay. That's
making gold out of gnome hats. So, all right, you have to believe this part too.
So far I believe 100%. Like, when the logic kicks in later, but in this moment, I'm with you.
Okay.
I'm living this moment with you.
So the next day I go to school, and my friend Corey, who you've met. This is the guy who's my oldest friend in the world. I have known him since I was 5 years old. We've gone to school together our entire lives. I still am friends with this guy. I get to school the next day, and I am looking haggard for an 8-year-old. Like, imagine a really
a hungover 8-year-old.
A hungover 8-year-old from lack of sleep. I'm looking haggard. I get to school the next day. Corey is also looking really. Listen.
Okay.
Corey
100% is going down a little bit now.
No, seriously. Corey is also looking like a little shaken up. And it's like we're going through class, blah, blah. We get to lunch. I have not told anyone about this. I have not said a word because it sounds ridiculous, and I am still terrified. We get to lunch, though, and Corey and I always ate lunch together. And I asked him, I was like, what's going on? Like, you seem, whatever the 8-year-old equivalent of, man, what's going on? You look like you had a rough night. And also kind of hoping he would ask me about my rough night. But he proceeds to tell me an almost identical story, but at his house. We did not talk about this at all. It's like, but then he tells me that he had a very similar story where a gnome ran across his doorway, like peeked in, ran across his doorway.
Where were you living? What city was this?
In Memphis.
Okay.
We're both in Memphis, but we were also. He lives. I lived in East Memphis. He lived in Whitehaven.
Well, I mean, it's inhumanly fast. So
yeah,
it could
exactly.
Get there.
It could get there.
It could get there.
But he tells me this story. So I, of course, after he tells me, he's like, man, I think I saw a gnome in my room, like run by my room last night. I completely flip my lid over the. Corey, you don't understand. I had that exact same thing happen last night. You were not like. To this day, this is still a thing you could ask either of us about, and whether it really happened or not, I believe this is an unshakable truth in my life that this happened.
So, okay, was that the end of the story?
That's the end of the story. And nothing like that ever happened again. Neither of us ever saw another one.
I would assume if it happened again, this would be added to the story. Yeah. My question to you is this: so, does that mean that you fully believe in gnomes to this day as a grown human being? Because you're telling this story, and I'm getting the impression that maybe you don't know what you believe, even though you saw a gnome. Like, you're not walking around going, "Gnomes are real. Gnomes are real." Like,
I guess I hadn't thought of. Well, and I hadn't told this story I hadn't even thought about this story in years. And I was at dinner last week with some people, and somehow. somehow the subject of gnomes came up, and I was like, oh yeah, I've got a gnome story. And then they were like, what? What do you mean you have a gnome story? And then I told them the story, and I was like, oh, this will be great to do for the podcast, since that first episode is
all about gnomes.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I hadn't thought about it like that. I don't know if I actually believe in gnomes, but I do know that I believe 100% that this happened. So.
Okay, so I just Googled, are gnomes real? And there is the most terrifying picture.
Oh my God.
On the Google images. This is so terrifying.
Oh, I wish you had not shown
I
me
will
that.
post this on the Tumblr.
I don't know if you should post
it is
this.
a grainy image of some sort of a gnome-like creature, like it's Bigfoot, but it's a
my
gnome,
gosh.
and it just gave me a chill because it's horrifying.
Yeah, okay, imagine being 8 years old
Yeah.
and seeing that shutter across your, like, right in front of your room.
Now we are looking at the image Google search results of Are Gnomes Real? And that is the only one that has any credence to it, I guess. Yeah, so there it is again.
Man.
That's horrifying. So, what I will give you respect for is this. Let's say this really happened, right? No judgments either way. Let's say this really, truly happened, and you saw all this as an 8-year-old. I cannot believe you are not more screwed up right now than you are. Like, this would be a horribly scarring incident if this happened to me as an 8-year-old, seeing a gnome. Like, I thought you were gonna just tell a story like it was a shadow that just ran by. You didn't see the gnome face.
No, this was, without a doubt, clearly a gnome. Actually, thinking about it now, I think that really what kept me from losing my mind about it, like what kept me from being...
Was David the Gnome on Nickelodeon?
No. What kept me from losing my mind about it was the fact that then my closest friend also believed me and was in it with me. So it was like, look, there's no way we're both crazy. We just had this crazy experience.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because
Yeah.
when you were like, I have a gnome story, I was like, surely this story isn't going to be, I saw a gnome. But
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody else has seen a gnome out there,
Yeah,
email.
tell us your
Gravity
gnome
Falls,
stories.
GravityFallsGospel@gmail.com.